Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday, everyone. The weekend has finally come. And today we're here with our Friday game day flights. Here today in my home airport of Clark Regional Airport here in just outside Louisville, Kentucky. That is where we're at here today. So before we get started, I do want to say hello to all you guys here in the mods. And today we'll be covering our very first ever matchup of the MLS here in this series of American Major League Soccer. We're going to cover the Hell is Real Derby between Columbus Crew and FC Cincinnati, these two Ohio clubs. This is a pretty recent rivalry dating back to 2017, in fact, so this is pretty new in comparison to some of the other stuff we'll talk about. But these two do not like each other at all. So, very important rivalry, big regional pride here in the state of Ohio, of course. So, we're going to be going here today. So, pretty big stuff. The Crew and FC Cincinnati are both pretty solid into the MLS this season. And both teams are both two pretty notable teams in the Eastern Conference. So, pretty big stuff going on, of course. We also recap the World Cup final, of course, that happened last Sunday. So we'll recap the final, and we'll do all that sort of stuff here today. So our flight plan today should be something like this, of course. Here's our flight plan for this morning, of course. Let me go ahead and load today's flight plan right here. So here's our flight plan for this morning flight. So we'll start here at Clark Regional, my home airport. We'll fly down into Louisville, Kentucky. We'll fly down to Louisville. We'll fly down to Louisville, Kentucky. We'll fly over Lynn Family Stadium, the home of Louisville F-City FC, my local soccer team, of course. From there, we'll fly down into our next flight. We'll fly into Cincinnati, of course. We'll fly downtown Cincinnati, fly around to here, of course. Fly down to Cincinnati. We'll go over into TKL Stadium, the home of FC Cincinnati and the University of Cincinnati here. Then we'll head up north and make our first stop at Hamilton Airport, Butler County, Hogan Field, just outside of Hamilton, Ohio, for the first stop. Then from Hamilton, we'll make our way through into Dayton. We'll fly over Dayton, downtown, and then we'll go east over from Dayton, Ohio to Columbus, the capital of Ohio. We'll fly into NationLower.com Field, right around downtown Columbus. Then we'll head north into Ohio Stadium, where the Crew originally played. And there's also the historic Crew Stadium. And we'll stop at Ohio State Airport. And we'll fly over historic Crew Stadium, and then we'll make our way down to Ohio State Airport. So that's going to be our flight for today. Just under 200 nautical miles here this morning, so this will be a pretty quick flight. Hey, Ibanez player, good to see you. Good morning, my dude. Let me give him a shout out. Good to see Ibanez player. I hope you're doing well. So we're flying the Pipistrel Virus today, an aircraft I haven't actually flown in a bit. I've been flying the Fokker F-70 F-100 nonstop every day since I got it. So, I've also been working on a couple of new achievements for Fireflyer when they get released. They're mainly sports-related achievements. I wanted to work on a few of those, but mainly work on those from the other hubs from Fireflyer we don't really have, like Madrid, Cologne, Genoa, Vancouver. Never really had any sports-related stuff, so I'll be working on all those. So we'll get that. So there's the Pipistrel Virus. Really nice light aircraft. And really neat plane. So definitely check out Bonnie Inspire. He does a lot of flight simming. Mainly on X-Plane now, but he does a lot of really nice streams and stuff, of course. So we'll get ready to get going here. So our max altitude is going to be 2,500 feet. But we can fly 2,000 for most of the first leg. We'll be flying at 2,000 feet. And I'll adjust the heading to 198 degrees. But yeah, but we'll talk about the World Cup. We'll talk about the crew for a bit. But I'll also briefly recap the World Cup final once we get into the air. Once we head over to Cincinnati, of course, we'll talk about the game, of course. But we'll talk a bit about the World Cup final and my honest thoughts about it. Here we go. We're off. So here we go, guys. So here we go, guys. We're going to be making our way over to Louisville, Kentucky. We'll cover my local football club, Louisville City FC. So we'll be heading down to there as well. So we'll be flying 2,000 feet. So Louisville City, my soccer club. Lou City was founded back in 2015. Originally, they were a U of L franchise of Orlando City Soccer Club in Orlando. But they broke off of it in 2017, and they've won the USL Cup twice in 2017 and 2018. But they're one of the most successful clubs in American soccer outside of the MLS. And they play at the really nice 15,000 seat Lynn Family Stadium, which is one of the largest stadiums in the USL, and it can expand up to 15,000 people, making it one of the nicest stadiums in American soccer. So pretty nice stadium, of course. So. Now, as for my final thoughts about the World Cup final, of course, Spain beat Argentina 1-0. Spain absolutely played a defensive masterclass that game, as Argentina couldn't even get a shot on goal the entire game. It did win all the way to extra time, but it was won by Ferran Torres, who is a Barcelona player, which, again, if you guys don't know me, I don't like FC Barcelona, but for one, I'm glad Torres got the goal and beat Argentina. Not a fan of the Argentine team, so good to see Spain finally win their second World Cup in their nation's history. But yeah, there was one thing I did criticize, and that is the halftime show. Look, before you all ask about the Americans, The United States didn't even want the halftime show. The halftime show was not even invented by an American. It was a British guy from Coldplay was the one who wanted the halftime show in the first place. It wasn't the Americans. It was an Englishman from Coldplay. He wanted the halftime show and was the one who pitched it to him in the first place. So don't even give the Americans ideas, especially considering that the MLS Cup, the MLS Final doesn't even have a halftime show. Like, come on. So there's where the Lynn family stadium would have been built. So right there in this area is where Lynn family stadium was built, right in this little area here. That's where the soccer ground for Louisville has been built. So, but yeah, don't even think, like, there's a lot of things to criticize the United States for, but this is not one of them. Not one of them. So, I'm just being honest. That's kind of how it is. Hey, Quartz, good to see you. Morning, my dude. And Shaq. Yeah, it was not even Americans. It was curated by Chris Martin, who's English. Like, look, if it was pre-match and had a pre-match performance like a couple minutes, like 30 minutes before the game, I don't think it would be nearly as controversial, in my opinion. But because it was halftime, it just didn't feel right. And it was criticized by a lot of people. Because people thought it was too commercialized and too and unwanted Americanization, and it broke the laws of the game. Which, to be fair, since it can't exceed 15 minutes, honestly, again, it should have never have happened in the first place. It should either do pre-match or not at all. That's just my honest thoughts. But don't blame the Americans for even wanting it. They weren't even the ones who curated it in the first place. So, but no. I'd say overall, though, the World Cup was a good one. There was a lot of good things about it, but there were also some major controversies with this one. The whole Balogun thing. First off, it was the whole Balogun thing. The whole red card thing was a big one. But I also enjoyed a lot of the good stuff too. So good to see you, Shaq. Here's a shout for you. So that's going for me, of course. So for me this week, I think we're doing pretty well. I've been mainly doing some work for my virtual airline I'm part of. So good to see you. So we're going to be... And also, one last thing for the halftime show before I get done with it. The only reason why the United States Super Bowl has had this is because the halftime stuff has always been part of the American Super Bowl, not in the FIFA World Cup, okay? I'm sorry, I don't want any more talking about it. So we're going to cover the Hell is Real Derby between FC Cincinnati and Columbus Crew. This rivalry dates back to 2017. The Hell is Real is based off Columbus Crew and FC Cincinnati, and they occur twice a season because they're part of the Eastern Conference. The Hell is Real Derby actually takes its name from a Christian highway billboard on I-71 between Columbus and Cincinnati. There's actually a real one, and it's called Hell's Real. In the team's MLS Pro affiliates, the Columbus Crew 2 and FC Cincinnati 2 parodied the matches and used the nickname Heck is Plausible. But in reality, though, this is actually a pretty passionate derby. in 21 meetings, it was actually been dominated by the Columbus Crew. They've won 9 to Cincinnati 6 and draw 6 through the series through 21 different meetings. Fun fact though about all of it, one interesting bit of history was that the teams did meet for the very first time during the 4th round of the 2017 U.S. Open Cup, while FC Cincinnati was still a member of the United Soccer League. For those who don't know, the U.S. Open Cup is basically the United States equivalent to the FA Cup in England, the Copa del Rey in Spain, and the DFB-Pokal in Germany. It's basically their main cup competition. And Cincinnati actually won the meeting on a 1-0 goal from KJVY, knocking Columbus out of the tournament and advancing to the quarterfinals. Then on August 2019, the two sides played against each other in MLS play for the first time ever, and ended with a 2-2 draw at the historic Crew Stadium, which was called Mapfire Stadium at the time. And Columbus earned their first win of the series in the reverse fixture 3-1. The highest scoring match came in 2021 when FC Cincinnati lost 3-2, surrendering 2 late goals on 3-2. And the first MLS Cup playoff match between the two date back to December 2nd, 2023, hosted by FC Cincinnati, and it was won by the Columbus Crew. And they won it. And of course, the Columbus Crew went on to. Then, after giving up 2 goals in the second half, the Crew scored the winning goal in the 25th minute of extra time, enabling them to win the MLS Cup in the next week against LA Galaxy. So that's a bit of a history, pretty brief, but this rivalry is already one of the big ones of history. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, preach it, exactly. Like, come on, man. Like, look, I'm American and I don't even like the halftime thing. Like, don't get me wrong, it was probably better than some of the Super Bowl ones, but it just wasn't needed. Like, come on, man. And like I said, it's just like the Knights, like the MLS Cup at home doesn't even have a halftime show. Like, it's not the Super Bowl, it's bigger than the Super Bowl. I'm going to stop talking about that because I think there's. So that covers about the rivalry itself, and being one of those as well. So outside that, I appreciate it, Shaq. I know, I'm just trying to be honestly. But yeah, I'm very excited for it as well. But I did watch a lot of the MLS, and I've been really enjoying the MLS more. I need to be watching the league. The only reason I don't really follow the MLS too much is because, of course, if you know me, I don't really watch the because my local team, of course, is Louisville City, and they're in the MLS. Um, So there's definitely a lot of stuff going on here too. But I'm very excited though for the MLS. In terms of MLS standings, for both these teams, Cincinnati, mind you, and Columbus. Cincinnati's 5th. They're at 23 points. They're a good deal. 16 points behind first place Nashville SC, which is the team I actually adopt for the MLS, and it's because I don't really cheer for Cincinnati and you guys will find out soon mine when we cover Cincinnati. Columbus, 13th in the Eastern Conference. So 11th in the Eastern Conference at 16 points. Yeah. But they're nowhere near the worst team in the league, because the worst team is Philadelphia Union. They're not very good at all this year. So we're going to start covering a little bit about Cincinnati, of course. We'll get as we're flying near into northern Kentucky. So let's cover FC Cincinnati. So FC Cincinnati, based in Cincinnati, Ohio, was actually founded back in 2015 as a USL franchise, which played between 2016 and 2018. Then, when the club ownership was awarded MLS franchise and began play in 2019. So the club's ownership is led by Carl Linder III, with Jeff Birding serving as CEO. This club has had several nicknames over the years, including the Orange and Blue, the Knifey Lions, and the Garys, of course. And the Blue and Orange, definitely a very well-known team in Ohio, of course. But yeah, they started as a USL team. So they play at one of the really cool stadiums in the MLS, one of the MLS's best stadiums, TQL Stadium in Cincinnati, opened back in 2021. It seats around 26,000 people in the West End neighborhood. It was the former site of Stargell Stadium on Central Parkway at Wade Street. It has Bermuda grass service installed in 2014. And the construction of this had been around since 2018. They originally played at Nippert Stadium, which was the home football ground of the University of Cincinnati, of course. But super nice stadium. They've hosted plenty of matches here, of course. They hosted domestic matches, the MLS. They've hosted international matches, including several U.S. matches in the CONCACAF Gold Cup and World Cup qualification matches. They've hosted women's matches for friendlies. And unbelievably, it's even hosted matches of the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Were actually hosted here too, including the infamous 10-0 beatdown Bayern Munich had in Auckland City. But yeah, some of the games were actually held here at the Club World Cup, here in Cincinnati. And they even hosted, and one of the other most notable events was they hosted the English band The Who in 2022, which was actually their first concert in the city since the 1979 concert disaster in 1979, which actually led to 11 deaths. And it drew 16,000 spectators. But it's a super nice stadium, though. Very modern stadium in the MLS. Like, a lot of the new MLS stadiums, yeah, they're a bit smaller than the ones in Europe, but like I said, the MLS here isn't nearly as popular as like football is in the UK or Germany and all that. So, but like I said, they make up for modern amenities and stuff. Really nice stadium and stuff. Now, in terms of their colors and crest, FC Cincinnati is, of course, the blue, orange, and blue. Their secondary colors include gray, dark blue, and white. The original crest that was used in the USL was just a simple shield with a crown and the wing line of St. Mark the Evangelist, holding a sword and soccer ball. Then they updated it when they were in the MLS, still maintaining the blue and orange color scheme, while updating the wing lion with the text for the club. But yeah, that, and you see the kit on here, right? This is what the typical Cincinnati kit: dark blue, orange, and regular blue. Simple color scheme, simple stuff here for Cincinnati, of course. Now, in terms of supporters and fan cultures, I know Cincinnati fans are quite a very passionate fan base. They have multiple supporter groups, including the Auxilla 1, the Brigade, the Fifth Line, the Innistrad, Hangar 937, Knights of the Bailey, Norden, the Pride and Queen City Mafia. And each of these supporter groups is organized under a single unified body called the Incline Collective, which is responsible for pulling resources for community events, TIFOs, pre-match march, and coordination with the club. And the old supporters group is called the Pride, which is the old supporters group in there as well. They even have one in Kentucky and one in Southeast Indiana. But and here's the crazy thing: you guys wouldn't believe this, but the club actually has international supporters too, which I know sounds weird to have a U.S. club have international fan groups, but it's true. They actually have fan groups in Ghana, United Kingdom, and France even, which I still can't believe they have international groups. In terms of marches, of course, but they're one tradition here, dating back to the USL, one of their oldest traditions, the march. And basically, in the earliest ones, it went through the march to Nippert Stadium, drawing gradually from base points in Over the Rhine and Clifton. And since their move in 2021, the march moves through various points of interest in the Over the Rhine region and West End neighborhoods, including the Finley Market, and several breweries and pubs as well. And they go through much of the area to TKL Stadium. A very proud Cincinnati tradition, of course. So, pretty cool stuff. Like I said, Cincinnati, really neat club with history and stuff. So, you guys, if you wonder why I don't cheer for Cincinnati, this is kind of the page, and this is probably why I don't cheer for Cincinnati, of course. Obviously, we have the Crew, which was their in-state rival, and it gained popularity in 2017. The Hell's Real Derby. We've already covered that a bit. But here's the reason why I don't support Cincinnati. Yeah, Louisville City FC. During the USL times, their number one rival is, well, New City, of course. They competed for the River Cities Cup, or in the locals called the Dirty River Derby, and it became one of the best attended and mostly hotly contested matchups in lower division U.S. soccer. Now, mind you, these two cities have been rivals, and universities have been rivals for decades. So there's already bitterness and bad blood between the two already. And of course, in that derby, Cincinnati has had more wins than Louisville, 6-4 to 2 in 12 meetings. These two last met during the 2023 U.S. Open Cup. But these two, quite a bitter one, and like I said, it's a very bitter rivalry, of course. Louisville and Cincinnati do not like each other. And that is one of the reasons I don't support FC Cincinnati for the MLS, is because that rivalry is still on my mind. I've been a fan of Louisville City since at least 2017, so I've been around this rivalry for a good deal. Their other rival was on the USL side, Pittsburgh Riverhounds, because obviously with the Bengals and Steelers being rivals in NFL, it made kind of sense for the two to have a rivalry. But that being said, if you ask most Cincinnati fans, the biggest USL rivalry was indeed Louisville City Football Club. And that's why it's on the picture here with Louisville City in Cincinnati. And here's their club honors. Like I said, they're relatively newer on the MLS side of things. Won Supporters Shield in 2023. They were runners-up in 2025 for the Supporters Shields, and they won a USL regular season title in 2018. And here's a couple of their players over the years. Luciano Acosta, some of their most notable players include Luciano Acosta, who is their all-time leading goal scorer with 54 total goals. You have Yuya Kubo, who played 179 matches for FC Cincinnati. Then you got Nick Hagland, who's played 174 matches. He could potentially be the most played match guy who played for Cincinnati, the most matches. He'll get there later this season. Then you have Brandon Vasquez, second all-time leading goal scorer. That Evander has probably been their best player right now. Evander has been an elite attacking player, 32 goals. He could absolutely be the best player Cincinnati may ever have. He's come through multiple teams, Vasco in Brazil, Midtjylland in Denmark, and then Portland Timbers, but he's been a star in Cincinnati. He's been the best player for FCC. Then you have Roman Celentano, who's played the third most matches. He's their goalkeeper. Then you have Alvis Powell from Jamaica. And then finally, and there's a couple more players mentioned, but these are just the ones I want to bring up for FC Cincinnati. Hey, good to see you, Nightwolf. I hope you're doing well, my dude. Here's a shout for you. We're covering the Hellas Real Derby, FC Cincinnati and Columbus Crew. These two clubs don't like, these two MLS teams do not like each other. Hence the Hellas Real. So we'll go through this area. So we're going to be going through this area, of course, today. In terms of other matches, of course, the MLS happened this past Wednesday, of course, was MLS action. The first MLS action post-World Cup, of course, or at least... at least it was the first bit of MLS post-World Cup, was the 23rd. 22nd, of course. Wednesday was quite interesting because some of the major debuts, but the two major debuts that happened during Wednesday's matches was Chicago Fire with Robert Lewandowski, the greatest Polish player of all time, and Orlando City had Antoine Griezmann, the guy who won France the World Cup. Unfortunately for Lewandowski, he could Inter Miami won that thanks to a brace of Luis Suarez in Planbeck's 87-minute goal. But thankfully for Griezmann, he helped Orlando City dominate San Jose Earthquakes 4-0. Oh yeah, and that Inter Miami game, of course, a hilarious own goal in the 18-minute, which was hilarious. Imagine people saying the MLS World Cup and then they see the own goal. But in all seriousness, no, I definitely enjoyed the MLS action. It's definitely been very entertaining. Yeah, I definitely need to watch the MLS quite a bit more. So, pretty fun stuff. I always enjoy learning something here. I definitely appreciate it, Nightwolf. So, we're definitely enjoying this trip here. GA, obviously, it's been this part of the channel for years, so we're going to cover here. So, Cincinnati, if you guys weren't aware, Cincinnati is one of the really interesting cities here in Ohio. It's the Ohio city I've been to the most, settled in 1788 at the confluence of the Licking and Ohio rivers. It's actually Ohio's third most populous city after Columbus and Cleveland, but its metro is actually the most populous in the state, 2.3 million residents. Ohio, Cincinnati was among the top 10 U.S. cities for much of the 19th century due to the fact it was a very popular inland port. A lot of German-speaking immigrants came here and developed many of the institutions, and it was one point the Paris of America due to its architectural projects, most notably the Roebling Suspension Bridge. In terms of sports, Cincinnati has many sports teams. We actually covered the Reds earlier this year, was the Cincinnati Reds. They also got the Cincinnati, of course, Cincinnati is steeped in baseball history. After all, the first professional baseball team was founded here in Cincinnati. But it also has the NFL's Cincinnati Bengals, who have never won a Super Bowl, but they've came close on 3 separate occasions. And then the most recent major team, FC Cincinnati, which enjoys a lot of support within the city. So pretty cool stuff here in Cincinnati. Really neat place. Their airports, CVG, one of the nation's busiest cargo airports. It's grown massively as a cargo hub for pretty much the same reasons why Indianapolis and Louisville have grown. Its location just really helps out with air travel. So we're just getting through all this sort of stuff here. So in terms of this week, of course, on Saturday, obviously, here's my Discord if you guys are interested. If you guys are liking the stream and want to continue supporting the channel, if you're enjoying this sort of content, we stream here 2 days a week on Fridays and Sundays, of course, here on Twitch. So this Sunday, of course, we'll be covering a new national park in this series. We'll be covering Voyagers National Park in Minnesota. We'll be taking the S-Cup floats. We're going to be taking a new float plane. We'll take the Haviland Beaver float plane with us on that trip. So we'll take us a different float plane, and I think we're going to take, I think I'm torn between taking the Caravan float plane or the X-Cup float plane for this trip. So I'm kind of torn which one. I'm probably going to take the X-Cup floats for the trip. Just because I want to take something a bit different for this trip for the float planes. So that's what we're going to take on Sunday, of course. So very excited for this one, obviously. I worked on pretty much of the flights for this one. So if you want to know what next week's going to be for the game day flights, we're going to be in the Pacific Northwest. And we're going to cover the oldest soccer rivalry in the United States. Timbers and Sounders, which is America's soccer country, Pacific Northwest. We're going to fly from Vancouver down to Portland for that one. Really fun game. And then, of course, after that is going to be Yokohama versus Kashima in Japan. The J-League is going to get started. And, of course, we're going to cover the big game between these two Japanese icons. And then, of course, the last one before I leave on vacation, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. I know it's technically the start of European football season, but none of the matchups seemed interesting that weekend, so I decided for a baseball matchup between two of baseball's most enduring rivalries. So I thought that would be a more interesting game to pick, because a lot of them are either Super Cups, which aren't super important, or none of the other games sound interesting enough for the trip. But yeah, this week, though, for the football season, for much of the World Football calendar, I keep it much more diverse than I did in recent streams, of course. I kept it much more diverse this time around. What I mean is that we're not covering some of the same matches. We're going to cover some very different games, of course. This time we've now added games on my future schedule in Denmark. We've added Croatia. Serbia's added. Turkey is new to the calendar. Are all like new countries for this one. And we're going to cover some new matchups that we have never done before. And yes, Ireland's also covered too. We even got one for Ireland as well. For all you Irish out there. So yeah, this game day flight's going to be extremely diverse, and it's going to be, we're going to cover some new stuff we haven't, and also plenty of new matchups we have never covered before. And rivalry games I didn't get a chance to do last time. We got some new rivalries to cover. Manchester Derby's brand new. Le Classique in France. Alabama, Tennessee for college football. I did 3 of them this year for college football. Plus, there's also going to be a college basketball matchup, of course, because I'm not missing Louisville versus Kentucky. I'm not missing it because I want to talk about the biggest basketball rivalry in the country. But yeah, lots of new stuff to talk about this time around. lots of new stuff. I'm very, like I said, I'm very, very excited to cover with you guys. I'm looking forward to all of it. So, we're going to finally get near Cincinnati, of course. To our left, here is Cincinnati Covington Airport. Very big airport. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm also in the wrong server. I forgot to change this a while back. I was supposed to be Southeast Asia, but I was actually on West Europe. Balls. Normally find Southeast Asia, but I was on West Europe server because I was with Allison on Wednesday. I forgot to change it back. Balls. Yeah, you think Murphy's the only agent here. Turns out I could be just as much as bad as he could be sometimes. Hmm. Yeah. In terms of other stuff this week for the Flight Sim community, Murphy's gone. He's in Spain now. He's in Spain's southern coast. Lucky him. He gets to be in Spain's south coast, Almeria and Alicante area. That's supposed to be absolutely gorgeous because I got a chance to visit Spain. I want to go back, obviously. But this time, explore different regions like Madrid, Malaga, Valencia, Bilbao. Uh, Da Coruña would be really cool. Gijón, San Sebastian. Vigo would be neat to visit. Like, there's a lot of really cool cities I want to check out. Spain's always a bit more laid back, which actually kind of fits me pretty well. So, if you guys want to know what I've been working on as well, I've been working on more sports achievements for Firefly Air. So, I'm working on for several different sports achievements in Europe and North America. I worked one for TCU football for the Horned Frogs for college football. Wanted to do one for Hub in Dallas Fort Worth. So I went with TCU, the Horned Frogs. Um, then of course I worked one with Genoa, the Coppa Italia. So we covered their 1937 run in the Coppa Italia for Italy. Then two different ones out of Madrid, one for Atletico Madrid, in 2016, who unfortunately lost the final to Real Madrid in penalties. And the other one was the World Cup win by Spain. So it covered the entire World Cup journey of Spain. We covered the Spanish World Cup. We even have a flight to Chattanooga from Madrid to Chattanooga. Be a real long haul flight. That would be really interesting to do, and of course cover all their matches. And I've also worked one, just recently got done with one in Cologne, of course. So I'm gonna go ahead and slow down here once we reach into Cincinnati. Of course, I want to slow down just a little bit so we can get a better view of the city of Cincinnati. We don't have to blitz past Cincinnati, of course. This is Cincinnati, of course. In this area here is Newport, Kentucky, Covington and Newport, or around the Cincinnati metro. Newport's got the well-known aquarium and river boats. In the two stadiums by the riverfront, Paycor Stadium, the home of the Cincinnati Bengals, or the Bungles, as some people might call them, because they couldn't win a Super Bowl. And the other one's home of the Cincinnati Reds, the 5-time World Series champions. And of course, it's not a good time to be a Cincinnati Red, because this year has not been very good at all for the Reds. Last place in the NL Central by a pretty decent margin. So yeah, that is downtown Cincinnati. So yeah, there's downtown. This bridge right here is the Rowan Suspension Bridge. This was made by the same guy who eventually later on made the Brooklyn Bridge here in New York. And he was the one who actually did this. On our left was actually where the stadium was built for FC Cincinnati. Was on our left. This area around here is where the stadium was built. This field became a football field. This turned to TKL Stadium. And then we'll fly over the University of Cincinnati. This was where Nippert Stadium is at. And that's where FC Cincinnati got to play their initial games in the USL, and MLS were played in Nippert Stadium. Now, fun fact about Nippert, Nippert Stadium is actually one of college football's oldest grounds in the FBS. Very old stadium dating back to the 1900s. And it dates back all the way to 1915. Very old stadium, 111 years old. This is a very old stadium. Dating back to 1915. It seats up to around 38,000 people. It seats 38,000 people, which is quite a bit for old Nippert. It's a very tough place to play, though, for a lot of people. Good old Nippert. So now we're going to hand over to Butler County Airport for our first stop. We got one last leg over to Columbus, Ohio we have to cover. Yeah, Cincinnati, very important. So, in terms of the MLS, of course, there's several really big rivalries in Major League Soccer that I do want to talk about. There's several really big ones here in the MLS. Of course, there in Los Angeles, there's this match called El Tráfico between Los Angeles Galaxy and LAFC, one of the biggest crosstown rivalries in the MLS. Along with the Hudson River Derby is the 1-2 crosstown derbies in the league. And this one is a very big rivalry in American soccer. It's definitely one of the biggest ones in the league. And who knows, with the MLS moving to a more winter schedule, I might be talking about this rivalry significantly more than before. El Tráfico is a big one between these two LA teams. You have Cascadia with Vancouver in addition, with Vancouver play for Cascadia. You have the Canadian Classic. This one's also another pretty bitter one in Canada. Club Football Montreal and Toronto FC. Another big game rivalry between the two big C's in Eastern Canada. You have a Dallas-Houston rivalry with Dallas and Houston, the in-state rivalry. And of course, there's a couple of other ones to talk about too, but the MLS has some really cool rivalries as well. And American soccer also has a couple of other rivalries too, in the lower divisions too. My home team also has a rivalry with both Lexington SC and Indianapolis. Those are two pretty big ones. El Clamico, the two New England teams, the USL Championship, Hartford and Rhode Island. You also have the South Texas Derby. And of course, you also have the Black Gold Derby and a couple of other big ones. But yeah, some pretty big stuff in American soccer, like I said. The future of American soccer is bright. I gotta say, though, the future of soccer in the United States is a bright one, I truly believe. It's grown more every year, and I think the World Cup is going to help grow it even more. Maybe not with the MLS, not nearly as suddenly with Major League Soccer, of course, but I think with players like Messi join the league, Griezmann, Lewandowski, all those guys also going to help with some of the stuff too, bringing more people's eyes to all of it. But I think the thing that would truly grow, I think, American interest is if America developed its own wonder kid, its own talented player, but this talented player ends up choosing to remain in the States instead. That would be where I think the sport could grow more. If someone domestically could dominate the MLS and completely do it the same thing like Beirut did for baseball or Michael Jordan did for basketball, he could grow into an absolute superstar and dominate the league domestically. That, to me, could grow the sport even more, since kids can have someone here domestically that they can look up to. That would be the ultimate thing that would grow the sports, but the most. So that's just my 10 cents about how I think American soccer. And of course, that's just the MLS. There's a whole other ecosystem of lower league soccer, the USL, and they serve the markets the MLS doesn't serve. Like I said, I think American soccer is very interesting. It may not be in the level of Europe, obviously. Let's not forget American soccer kind of been a couple decades behind Europe, of course. But that's kind of me being honest about it though too. Like, there's potential, and I think that's the important thing. It's not so much immediately; it's potential. That's. Mm-hmm. So we're going to stop here for the first leg of the trip, and we're going to stop here for a bit. And stop here for a few minutes. If you guys want to join on in, here's our route. And here's our server. So we're going to stop here for just a bit if anyone wants to join on in. But yeah, I've been doing tons of flying in the Fokker 170. I absolutely love the aircraft. I think it might be my new favorite airliner in the sim to do some flying. So big stuff going on, of course, for some of the matches. But yeah, the Fokker 70 is just super nice. I think it's even better than the 146, and I like the 146. I like the Avro one RJ. The RJ is really nice. I still really like the RJ, but man, the Fokker F70 just feels so nice to set up. Once you get it set up, that Fokker is just super nice to fly. It's super smooth. I I think it also finally gets me the regional jet itch I've been looking for. Since I don't have the CRJ and all that, this feels like a great CRJ replacement for the CRJ 701 and 900 1000 models. So yeah, really nice aircraft. So we're gonna get ready to get going though for one final leg into Columbus, Ohio. So we're gonna go ahead and let's look at the fuel situation. I'm gonna switch over to the right tank. We're gonna go ahead and go up, and we're gonna go up. Oh, Oh, no worries about Shaq. Train simulator. Ah, interesting. Never been really once for trains myself. I'm not really a train guy. But trust me, operating locomotives and stuff has always been interesting how to model the trains. Like people think, oh, trains are simpler than planes, but people don't realize there's a lot to go into managing the locomotives, of course. It has its own particular set of skills. So we're going to continue flying over to Dayton, Ohio. We're going to fly to downtown Dayton for a bit, take some pictures, and then we'll head over to Columbus. So say goodbye to Hamilton. We're going to make our way up north to Dayton, Ohio. We're going to go to Dayton, then we're going to fly over to Columbus. So. That was funny. That was funny. Yeah, no worries. Like, people don't realize it has its own sort of skills. That's okay. That's okay, Shaq. Trust me, like I said, it takes its own certain skill set to learn how to manage the trains and stuff. Like there's all sorts of like schedules you have to run, check the engine, steam, make sure not too much heat and all that, and more. So, like I said, it takes a bit of its own skill set. So, I'm just doing it for the people that may not know how to run the trains and stuff. A bit different. And then for other flight sim stuff, I know Allison Johnson's my good friend Allie's gonna be back on. She'll be doing her historical flight recreation on Saturday. Another one of her recreation flights into Burma. or what is now Myanmar, from Calcutta, and she's heading down over to Dhaka in Bangladesh, and then making her way through into Yangon. In Burma or Myanmar. Or no, it was Rangoon, apparently, was Britain during this time. So, yeah, I have a ship simulator out there, but not out there good yet. Yeah, gotcha. But MSS is my favorite. Yeah, even all the mods, I have 2 ship mods, the rest is base plane. Yeah, no worries. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the sim that's now in the base. That's not even counting the planes that come in with some of the limited editions. Like, the sim has come a long way from 2020. Like, it's crazy how much things have changed over the last 2 flight sims, of course. So a lot of stuff going on here in the community, of course, this weekend. So we're going to talk briefly about the Columbus crew as we head our way over to Columbus. But before we do that, I want to talk a bit about Dayton, Ohio. So Dayton, by the way, is a very important city. It's Ohio's 6th most populous city, founded in 1796 along the Great Miami River, and named after Jonathan Dayton, who's actually one of America's founding fathers, actually, who owned significant land in the area. It grew as a canal town, but this area grew most with many patents and inventors, most notably the Wright brothers, who developed the first successful motor-operated airplane. And this means Dayton is actually well known as the birthplace of aviation, because this is where aviation was invented, here in Dayton, of course. And it was also home to the Dayton Project, a branch of the larger Manhattan Project to develop plutonium triggers for atom bombs. Nowadays, it's service economy, and there's tons of really cool places to visit. It has its own unique pizza, local pizza chains. But of course, it is very popular tourism. It's, of course, home to the most famous museum here, is the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, the largest and oldest military aviation museum in the world, and it draws over 1 million visitors a year. There's also the Dayton Aviation Heritage and National Historical Park, which commemorates the last achievements of Orville Wilbur Wright and Patrick Lawrence Dunbar. And you can find the famous Wright Flyer 3 housed in the museum at nearby Carilion Historical Park. And of course, sports are a big deal here too, especially with the local university, the University of Dayton. Especially Dayton basketball is especially popular here. It is Dayton basketball. The Flyer basketball is very popular here in the city, of course. In fact, Dayton's actually hosted more NCAA tournament basketball games than any other venue in the country. Dayton's very, very popular for basketball. Yeah, Dayton basketball's had excellent attendance, and of course, Dayton basketball. Yeah, but Dayton has had some great fan support in basketball. So yeah, basketball's a huge big deal in Dayton. So that's why Dayton's a wonderful basketball town, of course. Yeah, Dayton's a big basketball city. So big stuff, of course. Now, of course, we're about to arrive at Dayton, obviously. Though, that being said, if you wanted to find a great basketball city, of course, the best college basketball city in the country is Louisville. Louisville's the best. Louisville, followed by Raleigh and Durham, are probably the top basketball cities for college basketball, and possibly Indianapolis too. Are probably like the three big city in Lexington are like the big college basketball cities in the country. And the reason I say that is because, of course, basketball's huge in these college basketball's huge in these cities. Louisville obviously has the University of Louisville, but you also have Lexington nearby, University of Kentucky. South of Indianapolis, you have Bloomington, IU, but you also have Butler nearby. Butler University is pretty big. IUPUI, Indiana University, Indianapolis. And the Northwest is West Lafayette with Indiana. And of course, Raleigh, you have the Research Triangle. Chapel Hill for UNC, Durham from Duke, and Raleigh, North Carolina State. But yeah, lots of great places for college basketball. I'm also wanting to know about the Duke North Carolina rivalry as well. So Dayton, really cool city. And we're about to fly over the University of Dayton Arena, which is to our left. This is the University of Dayton Arena, home of the Flyers. And there's also the football field too. So Dayton, really cool sports town. Really, very underrated one, in fact, in terms of college basketball. So we'll get through all this. We'll turn left here, we'll turn right soon, and we'll head over to Columbus. We'll talk about the crew as we fly closer down to Columbus. So we're just 66 nautical miles out from our final stop in Columbus at Ohio State Airport. So we're about to reach one final stop. The Columbus Crew, one of the MLS's original franchises of the MLS. The Columbus Crew are among the oldest MLS franchises dating back to 1994. The Crew played in the Eastern Conference and began play in the MLS in 1996 as one of the 10 charter clubs of the league. And the other 10 charter clubs also include the original charter also includes the Colorado Rapids, DC United, FC Dallas, which were originally the Kansas City Wiz, LA Galaxy, New England Revolution, the New York Metro Stars, and the San Jose Earthquakes. And, of course, formerly the Tampa Bay Mutiny were the 10 original charter teams of the MLS. Of course, they're now owned by the Haslam family, who also owned the Cleveland Browns. This historic MLS team has won 8 major trophies in its history. The MLS Cup in 3 separate occasions, the MLS Cup 3 times, the Supporters Shield 3 times, the 2002 US Open Cup, and the Leagues Cup in 2024. And they have even qualified for the CONCACAF Champions Cup 6 different times, which basically, for those who don't know, the CONCACAF Champions Cup is North America's equivalent to the UEFA Champions League in Europe. And they've reached the quarterfinals on 5 different occasions. And in 2021, they won their first ever Continental Trophy, winning the Campeones Cup in 2024, which is basically the MLS Cup champion versus the Champion of Champions winner from Liga MX. And in 2024, they made it to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final in 2024. Unfortunately, they lost that competition as they were runners-up in 2024 as they lose to CF Pachua. As well. So pretty successful team. The Crew, of course, the black and gold of Columbus. Very historic part as well. Very, like I said, one of the MLS's very original teams of the MLS. Of course, one interesting thing has been their colors are black and gold, and their primary jerseys are primarily bright yellow with black trim. It's been nicknamed the Banana Kit or the Canary Kit by actual fans, with the alternate uniform mainly being black. And also due to the fact they don't wear black because black traps a lot of the heat during the summer heat of the United States climate. So, but you know, that might change once the MLS shifted schedule around in 2027. Now, of course, the badges, they had an original badge from 1996 to 2014 was a unique, as it featured people containing 3 silhouette males wearing construction hats of Crew to represent the Crew of hardworking people, much like the city of Columbus cultivates. However, with signing a crest for what it stood for in the 21st century identity, the original owner Precourt changed his kit to a second kit, but that's not very well liked by a lot of the fans. Then, of course, with the Haslam Group, they introduced a new ownership. However, it was not very popular with some of the fans, of course. But definitely pretty cool, though. The black and gold, one of the unique color schemes of Columbus. Hey, Filthy, good to see you. Oh, oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, the Crew versus FC Cincinnati, of course. Very, very recent, but a brand new rivalry that I think has gotten a lot of passion over the years. And that's why I wanted to cover it today, because I think it's one of the league's most underrated rivalries in MLS. Major League Soccer has grown a lot, and I think this would, and after the World Cup, I think this was a pretty good time to do it. Plus, I mean, there wasn't really other rivalries this week that I would have covered. The only other rivalry I could have considered was Galaxy Earthquakes was the only other one, but I already got one planned for the Bay Area in LA. So I thought this would be the perfect game for it. It would be the perfect weekend for this rivalry. Oh yeah, definitely. They do not like each other. And I hope Columbus Crew wins because I'm a Louisville City fan. I've been around the Louisville Cincinnati rivalry. Um, um, and I remember, and I don't like Cincinnati at all, so I hope the Crew win. Hope the Crew beat Cincinnati, of course. So, yeah, that's why I don't cheer for them, even though they're the closest MLS team. I don't cheer for them. In terms of their stadium, they play at the Scott's Miracle-Gro Field, which is pretty new. They actually built this back in 2021 as Lord.com Field, but it was changed its sponsorship over in 2021. In 2025. This stadium seats around 20,000 people. Another really modern facility. Of course, the MLS has grown a lot more modern facilities. It seats 20,000, include 30 suites and 1,900 different club seats. However, this team is going to be one of the few teams that's going to be hosting some preliminary matches of the Olympic soccer tournaments of the 2028 Summer Olympics. So it will be renamed Columbus Stadium due to the IOC policies and corporate sponsored names, and will host 9 different matches, of course. In addition, this stadium has hosted plenty of international friendlies and club matches, including one with Aston Villa in 2024. And it's, of course, hosted plenty of U.S. national team matches over the years, as Columbus historically hosted a lot of those matches in the past. But of course, outside of Miracle Field, the Crew also played in 2 other stadiums in the past. They for a long time they played at the historic Crew Stadium, which was the first MLS soccer-specific stadium here in the country. At that seat, and at most, it's sitting around 22,000, of course, and it hosted a ton of games for the U.S. national team. Both men's and women's have hosted tons of matches there. And the original stadium that the Crew played, you guys wouldn't believe this, they played at the Ohio Stadium, the same one the Buckeyes played. Yes, the MLS actually played at the Ohio Stadium. And the home opener was 25,000 fans. And the record attendance there is 31,000. But yeah, they once played there too, which is still pretty crazy. But yeah, big stuff though. The Crew played a big part. In fact, I believe the Crew were the very first major league team in the city of Columbus, actually. Yes, it got picked over the NHL didn't make its way to Columbus until 2001 with the Blue Jackets. In terms of their supporters and stuff, the club culture before the 2008 season, the Crew front office dissolved North Stands in order to catch up with other teams that have chosen to invest in their own soccer stadiums with a stage at the end to provide additional revenue. The 3 support groups at the time, Crew Supporter Union, Hudson Street Hooligans, and La Turbi Amarilla, set apart, but eventually came together to form the Norddeck, which is North Corner, which celebrates the city's German heritage, and the Norddeck is still here even with the new stadium, of course. And of course, the team has several pretty big rivals. We already have Cincinnati, but they also have a rivalry with Chicago because Columbus is a 6-hour drive away from Chicago. They also have rivalries with FC Toronto FC for the Trillium Cup, and also FC Dallas for the Lamar Hunt Pioneer Cup, due to Lamar Hunt being the owner of both these teams before his death. And of course, Cincinnati and Columbus are obviously the biggest rivals of these two. So, pretty big stuff. The crew played a game in Cleveland. Oh yeah, 56,000, of course. And you know why there was 60,000 people? Because of a certain Argentine named Lionel Messi. People want to see Messi. Previously, it was very difficult for us Americans to see Lionel Messi because, well, he played in Europe for all those years, in Barcelona and PSG. I mean, when Messi literally came to the MLS all those years ago, when he finally got to come into the MLS, of course, Messi to the MLS, like, it really just changed the MLS significantly. It's the biggest thing since Beckham came to the Major League Soccer. When he came all those years ago, when Beckham came to LA Galaxy, it absolutely just, Beckham to the MLS just changed the entire and eventually it led to him getting Inter Miami and then getting Messi. It absolutely changed it. So people gotta remember that. But yeah, Beckham absolutely did a massive of all of it. So yeah, a lot of people got to see Lionel Messi, of course, and obviously when Messi joined the MLS, it was absolutely insane. It drew record attendances for all the fields. And well, he's been really great in the MLS too. Messi's been fantastic there too, so not really a surprise. In terms of their club honors, this is a club that's been one of the most successful in the MLS. In terms of MLS clubs, the Crew are among the most successful in the MLS. 3 MLS Cups, most recently 2023, when they defeated Los Angeles FC. 3-time Supporters Shields, including back-to-back in 2008 and 2009, in the U.S. Open Cup in 2002, and they've won 2 Continental Trophies, the Champions Cup in 2021, and the Leagues Cup in 2024. Very successful club in the MLS, of course. That being said, I believe the most successful MLS club and the ones who's won the most trophies have been LA Galaxy, have been the most successful U.S. soccer club. But Columbus Crew have won plenty of trophies, and here's some of the most notable players to play in Columbus Crew. But of course, one of the most well-known MLS stars, of course, the all-time leading goal scorer, is one of the original American MLS stars, Brian McBride. He was the original MLS star. Played for St. Louis Billikens. He played for a bit for the Montreal Rampage. Then he was part of VfL Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, in the German leagues. But then he became part of Columbus Crew, and he spent 7 seasons there in Columbus Crew, scoring 62 league goals. And total, he scored 79. And that was before he eventually got loaned into, along with loan spells at Preston and Everton. Then he also had a long career at Fulham, and then his career with Chicago Fire. And he played 96 appearances for the United States national team too, so he got a significant national team career as well. Then you have the most played guy, Chad Marshall, who's played 277 matches. He's the most played guys at the club. Mike Clark. The second leading all-time goal scorer, Jeff Cunningham. Third all-time goal scorer, Giassi Zardes. He also played here as well. You got Chuco Hernandez, who is now at La Liga's Real Betis. But he actually played for a couple years in Columbus Crew, including winning the MLS Cup with them. Eddie Gavin, another guy who's played a long-time career for them, Eddie Gavin. And Stern John, who actually hails from the Trinidad and Tobago. So yeah, these are some of those notable guys to play in the MLS. So here's all their names again: Brian McBride, Chad Marshall, Michael Clark, Jeff Cunningham, Giassi Zardes, Chuco Hernandez, Eddie Gavin, and Stein John. And there's a couple more iconic players, but yeah, these are the guys who played for Columbus Crew. So that covers one of the MLS's most historic teams, the Crew. So yeah. Now, Filthy, the good news is that next week we're going to continue the MLS next week, Filthy, because we're going to be heading to the Pacific Northwest to cover American soccer's most historic rivalry, the Sounders and Timbers, who, mind you, have been playing since the 1970s, in fact. Very old soccer rivalry here in the States. In terms of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, of course, mostly, in terms of North American Cups, of course, and the titles, the league that's dominated the most with these cups has been Mexico, obviously. Cruz Azul and America have both won 7 of them. Pachuca won 6, Monterrey with 5, and Toluca with 3. Then outside of Mexico, the most successful North American club that has won this competition outside of Mexico is Costa Rica's Deportivo Saprissa, with 3 of them. Then Transvaal out of Suriname with 2. Then a couple of Costa Rican clubs. Of course, there's only been 3 MLS clubs that have ever won the competition: LA Galaxy, DC United, and Seattle Sounders. The only 3 U.S. teams to win the competition. So, yeah, Mexico has won the vast majority of the titles. It's been Mexican clubs. But to be fair, Mexico has always historically been North America's most successful nation for a reason. Even without even the World Cups, Mexico has won a lot. But to be fair, Mexico's always been the football crazy nation here in North America. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the MLS, and also one other thing about the MLS. So next year, of course, 2027 is going to be a big year for the MLS because the MLS is going to change its schedule actually in 2027 because it's going to change to being a European schedule now. It used to be spring to fall to summer to spring format. And the reason they did that was to better align with the transfer windows in Europe. and reduce interruptions from FIFA international match windows, and to avoid competing directly with the NFL and college football for playoff viewership. So there's going to be a bit of a sprint season from February to May, which is going to culminate in the MLS Cup. It's going to be 14 games, and then it's going to do the new full schedule in July 2027, which I think will be cool to see. It's going to be interesting to keep track of it, though. But the good news is that it's going to make the game day fights a bit more interesting with football and soccer. So I'm pretty much looking forward to that. I don't know if the USL is going to have a similar thing to American soccer. I wonder if the USL is going to have the same thing to the USL Championship. I guess the USL is still going to remain spring to fall. So I don't know. Like I said, the schedule change is definitely going to be getting some. It's going to get some used to for American soccer fans. It's going to get some used to. But the good news is that I think by having this summer, the schedule being there, I think it's going to benefit a lot more of the warm weather cities, like Florida, like the Southern United States, like Florida, the Florida teams, Atlanta, Charlotte, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. Like, those are going to greatly benefit from the schedule change since it's not going to be so miserable in the summer. It's not going to be nearly as miserable in the summer, of course. However, the cold weather teams is the one I'm going to be most interested about. Minnesota, especially. Minnesota is going to be a big one. Montreal, Minnesota, Toronto, New England. Those areas are going to get, in Chicago, are going to get tons of snow. There are no shortage of snowstorms in those states, so I would definitely keep an eye on that. So we're going to go ahead and arrive into Columbus, Ohio. Columbus is Ohio's most populous city, and it is the state capital of Ohio. Population around 905,000 people. Its metro area is 2.23 million people. Founded back in 1797, but the city was founded in 1812. It was through the Ohio Erie Canal and the National Road. It grew as a major hub and expanded even more so. Nowadays, it's known for high-tech, innovation, manufacturing with AI, and home to one of the largest universities, Ohio State. Of course, Columbus is a sports city. The Ohio State Buckeyes are the big ticket in town, but they do have two major league teams, actually three of them. The Columbus Crew, the MLS. They're going to get a women's soccer team in 2028, and then they'll also be getting. They also have the Blue Jackets of the NHL. But yeah, very big deal. Columbus is definitely a really cool sports community here in Columbus. So here it is. Downtown Columbus is in the distance for the Crew. The last time I'd been here was the Ohio State-Michigan game between Ohio State and Michigan. We did the game, of course. But it's on the same weekend as the one I'm doing this time, but I'm not going to do Ohio State, Michigan this time. In fact, I'm not even doing Alabama, Auburn this time. Instead, I have a different rivalry in mind for that November 28 weekend. Yes, it's going to be the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe with Wisconsin and Minnesota. The battle for Paul Bunyan's axe. That is the most played game in college football. Plus, I never get to do much flying in Wisconsin and Minnesota anyway, so I think that would be a pretty fun flight. So I'll be excited to do that, though. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream and stuff. This has been a lot of fun flying in Ohio. So here it is. Beautiful Columbus. Yeah, the MLS rivalries, of course. Maybe in the future, I do LA Galaxy, LAFC, the El Trafico. We're doing Sounders and Timbers, of course. We're going to be doing that, obviously. And of course, there's also the one in Florida. That might be one I do in the future. I mean, next week, though, is MLS's rivalry weekend. Was July 31st, was the rivalry weekend. A lot of rivalry stuff. Yep. It's been a lot of fun. So here it is, guys. Downtown Columbus, Ohio. Oh. Beautiful Columbus, guys. So here it is, guys. Now the stadium is down here. There's the soccer ground. So there's the soccer stadium down below. That's the site where they built it. There's the Huntington Park, the home of the minor league baseball team of the Columbus Clippers. And this Nationwide Arena, that's the home of the Blue Jackets. This is the NHL team plays here. And there's downtown Columbus. So pretty good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and turn left. So we're going to head up to the Ohio State University to check out Ohio Stadium, the original home of the Crew. Yeah, there she is. There's the big Ohio Stadium, home of the Buckeyes. Over 102,000 people. Here's the historic Crew Stadium. This is where the Crew played for most of their history. Played here. So there's the historic Crew Stadium. It's still probably in the black and gold. So here it is, the historic Crew Stadium. So now we're heading to the Ohio State University Airport. Kilo Oscar Sierra uniform for our third and final landing of the day. So this has been a really fun trip, guys. So here we are, guys. Ohio State Airport. Thank you all so much for coming here today. We're going to go ahead and prepare for our landing for the last time today. Beautiful airport, of course. Beautiful area here in Ohio. So yeah, in terms of other matches this week, of course, this weekend on Saturday, of course, for sports matches, we got MLS action this weekend. Of course, we got the Crew in Columbus on 7:15 tomorrow, so it should be a big match. Other big ones: Orlando SC Nashville is the home debut for Antoine Griezmann, his home debut. Of course, a California clash, San Jose and LA Galaxy is a pretty big one here out west. And of course, would be some other very interesting clashes as well. So, we're down. Beautiful. Negative 31 feet per minute. Beautiful. So that's it, everyone. We're down in Ohio State University Airport. We made it to Columbus, guys. So we finally did it. So we're ready for the big one, of course. Massive thank you, guys. So we'll be back here. We'll be back on Sunday in Minnesota for Voyagers National Park. Hope you guys will be ready for that one. We'll be doing some float plane action. We're gonna go ahead and say hello to our good friend Ian Fisher. I think he's on break, but we're gonna go ahead and raid him. He's actually one of the only ones who done Flight Sim, so we'll raid Ian Fisher stream. Take care, everyone, and stick around for the raid. And we'll see you all on Sunday. Take care, everyone, and have a good day. Goodbye, everyone.